Well, welcome. This is Jenine Marie. I'm glad that you're here. Right now, you're here in my office, in my home. And one day, very, very soon, you'll actually be able to see me again, but not quite yet. I am waiting to get through a surgery, which is actually the day after tomorrow. And I'd love to explain the procedure to you, but quite honestly, it kind of freaks me out. So, I asked God in prayer and meditated on the procedure that is coming. And I asked, what is it that I need to do in this moment? Besides, tell people that I love you. And so I'm going to take that moment in time and tell you that I love you. And it doesn't really matter whether we have met in person or not, or whether we have spoken or not, or whether I even know you or you know me personally or not. None of that matters. Love is love. And of course, I'd love to know you. And some of you I do know, and so that makes it awesome. I hope that my sound is just a little bit better because I switched to my lapel mic. I think I have it working pretty well. If not, I'm going to have to look into some other options because as long as God will let me, I plan on continuing. So there I was last night, and I was just feeling deep in meditation. And when I meditate, I am listening very, very carefully to what God has for me. And of course, it's not God way up in the clouds, contrary to maybe my photo that goes along with this video. And there's a reason I used it, and I'll explain that just a little bit later. But I really truly believe that the God of all creation is not just around us, not just above us, not just in all things, but is also inside of us. All things means inside of us. And I've repeated that so many different times. I think sometimes, when we see someone that's praying or in that posture of praying, they're always looking up. And I have a theory about that. It's probably about Jesus' ascension and his words to tell us the things that he left us. Always look up. Look up because your redemption is drawing nigh. Look up into the heavens because I'm coming back in the clouds. So we're always looking up. But the reality is everything's energy, and everything is spiritual energy. When it comes from a spiritual creator, it holds all of the elements of that creator. When we create a child, that child is going to come out with all of the human elements and a lot of the hereditary things that we have passed down to that child. Well, God is the same with us, and we are the same with God. We have some of those characteristics and elements that God has gifted to us because there is no other way it could be. Naturally, we are going to resemble our Creator. And that, my dear, is an exciting thing. Oh my goodness. It is so exciting when you think about it. We have the capability to be powerful and create and to emulate what God is. And, isn't that what Jesus did on this earth, on this planet? Because when Jesus was here, the things that really struck me about Jesus when I watched those Jesus movies that my mom put me in front of, it was just, number one, Jesus' love. So much love. And Jesus' ability to, I'm going to say, take command over the elements. I mean, that is really a God creator thing, isn't it? And Jesus, the ability, or having the ability to speak out over the elements and command them. And wasn't it God that spoke out over the earth that had basically nothing and created everything with the spoken word? And, here comes a caution. Be careful what you say. Be very careful. Make sure you mean what you say and you say what you mean. And even then, be careful what you say. There are so many things that I've said recently that feel just very disempowering. And I think a lot of it comes from just what I've been through emotionally and going through cancer treatments and, having a lot of the unknown out there for me. But, one of the things that I really wish that I would do was just hold back and really, really think about what I really want to say as opposed to what I end up saying. It's like I want to do premeditated speaking. I want to think about what I'm going to say because I always want to empower, and it doesn't always come out that way. Sometimes it comes out the human way with emotion, and I want to create stability. I want to create that beautiful feeling of creating a bridge between me and others, and I guess I should say myself and others. And instead of, I guess, burning bridges. And that's a human lesson thing. It really is. So I can continue with that, probably talk about it for freaking ever. But I want to get to the vision part. And you might have heard me tell this story before. So if you have heard it, you can just kind of click off if you want to. You can hear it again because there might be something that you pick up that you did not really assimilate before or think about before. And now here it is. So I want to talk about the vision of Jesus that I had. And it came on, like I said, a hot August night. It was August 30th. My 2 children had just gone to bed. I tucked them in, and I was feeling a little bit depressed and lonely and a little bit empty. And then when I really thought about it, as I'm thinking about it now, probably a lot empty and probably a lot more depressed than I am coming across right now. It's kind of hard to go back and just really feel those feelings the way that I did before, or any of us, did before, and kind of express those things the way that they really were and they really felt, because we have gone through so many other things in life and transitioned into a different part or different phase or different season of life, and thank God for that. Thank God that we move on to different seasons. Thank God for seasons and that they change. And thank God that it's always the same, that we can count on so very few things in this world. Things are just always in flux. But there's one thing that we can always count on, that God is always the same. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, everything that was touched by and created by God always follows the same structure. Seasons, the way our body is and how it functions, how the world is. And I'm not talking about humanity, because humanity goes through shifts and, we never really know which way it's going to go, right? Sometimes we want to watch it and sometimes we don't feel like watching it so much. But, all we can do is pray and hope. Pray and hope and see humanity in our vision uplifted, because that will uplift us. The main thing, we will be uplifted. And if we're out into the community and we're uplifted, we're going to uplift others just naturally. So, keep that in mind. But God is always the same. Jesus is always the same, always emulating what he called the Father. And when Jesus addressed God and addressed the Father, Jesus was addressing headship. And what he was saying when he addressed in prayer the Father is, you are my headship. You are the one I look to. You are the one I look like. You are the one that I emulate. And did a very excellent, perfected job of emulating the Creator. So I was in this space and not feeling very great, and really quite depressed, feeling darkness everywhere. And it was a warm August night. I went outside into the backyard, and I could feel the emotion inside of me, feeling like it was just rising up. And I wanted to cry, which was something amazing because of the moment. Just prior to that, it was stuck. But I could feel something was happening. And I wasn't really completely sure what that was going to be, but I could feel it happening. And I ended up in the backyard, and I'm wearing shorts and a tank top because it's warm outside. And I go out into sticker bushes, and I'm looking over the edge of the area that I was living, and it was high on a hill. And I could see, I think, San Francisco from where I was. I mean, it was an amazing view. It was a beautiful, clear night. There were lights all across the horizon, or what would be the horizon. The sun had already gone down, but the lights were shining so brightly, so many stars in the sky. And I thought, this is a beautiful night, just gorgeous. But that emptiness was something I had to address. And I was asking God, what is it that I need? What do I need in this life right now? Because I feel so empty and so depleted, and I can't be in this state. I have 2 children, a son and a daughter, and I need to give to them. They need me. And they don't need a mom who's depressed. They don't need a mom who feels like she has nowhere to go, from here. It's like, where do I go spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically? What am I going to do? So many ifs, ands, and questions. And I actually knelt down in that area, which is kind of concerning because sticker bushes with thorns and shorts with a tank top just really don't go together. I was really kind of getting torn up there. But I reached out to that beautiful spirit that I knew, and that is the Spirit of God. And I knew that God was in and through all things. And so I was speaking out loud to God, and knowing that if I didn't speak out loud, God would hear me anyway on the inside. And I asked the question, what is it that I need? Because I really don't know. I don't know where I'm going. I need some direction, be my compass. I need to find my true north, right? So what came to me at that moment is God telling me, you need Jesus. You need Jesus. And it wasn't that I didn't know Jesus. I knew Jesus from when I was maybe 3 years old, even more so going into 8 and 9 years old. I had this great love for Jesus. I had this little girl, I think I had just a crush on Jesus. I saw that love that was emulated through movies and recreated, and I thought, that is what I want to have in my life. I want to give that. I want to be able to command the elements. I want to be able to give love to those who just are broken. I want someone to touch the hem of my garment and be healed. I want that. I want to cast out ugly, negative spirits. I want darkness to flee. I want all of that. And here I am, 8 years old. And as I went into being a new and young mom, I wanted those same things, but I didn't know how to get them. And God was telling me, you need my son. You need Jesus. So I started crying, and I said, whichever way you want to come and show me how I can have that power. Show me how I can do greater things than even you. Show me the things that you said are true, because I need it now. I need to know. And I was crying, and I got up and I went into the house, lay down on the bed. I kept the light on. I was looking up at the ceiling, and the next thing I knew, the only way I can explain this, it was like the ceiling opened up, like it was peeling back. And I was awake. I wasn't asleep. I was completely awake through all of this, my eyes looking at the ceiling. And all of a sudden, I found myself in scenery. And I was looking out into that scenery. And it was a beach scene. And I could hear the roar of the water. I could hear it coming up onto the shore. And I saw this being coming toward me. And I had the sense that that being was being followed by others, but I couldn't quite see them. They were like shadows. And as this being came closer to me, I came to realize this was Jesus. And he was nothing like the Jesus that we see in the pictures. He looked nothing like that. The only thing that I remember more than anything else, and it's as vivid today as it was a long time ago, he was golden. I mean, golden and light and beautiful. And this is the amazing thing. As strong as the love is, and powerful as the love is, that's the beauty that shines around the being. You can sense that love. You feel it. That being emulates that love everywhere they go. Whoever and whatever we decide to be in our lives, whatever we want to portray, whatever gift we give in our life, that shows on our body. It's just like when we eat a donut. We are what we eat, as opposed to good vegetables and things with minerals and vitamins, and it shows and glows in our skin. It's exactly the same in the spirit. I kid you not. Love shows, and it glows, and it's golden, and it's beautiful. It's like bronze. I don't know, it's hard to describe. And I remember looking at him, and I thought, wow, he is beautiful. I looked at his feet, and I thought, how beautiful are the feet of him that carries my soul in his hands and in his heart. He carries me in his heart. And how beautiful is he. And he started speaking to the people that were behind him, but he never took his eyes off me. His eyes were like fire, just radiance and beautiful. And he spoke to the people behind him and said, we must take this woman with us. And I'm thinking, oh, where am I going? You know, it's like almost immediately this fear started to hit me. It's like, where am I going? I can't leave my children. But it was a beautiful spiritual journey. I'm going to say that. So he took me by the hand, and I could feel that sense of my hand being held. And as we walked through the sand, I could not keep my eyes off the feet. And I was like, if I could just walk in the shoes of this man and be that love, I feel like life would be so amazing. But was he persecuted for it? Yes. Was he put down for it? Yes. He died for it? Yes. He died because of it? Yes. But his strength and his determination and everything about him was just amazing. And he took me by the hand and walked me through the sand to the edge of the ocean, and there was a pier with a boat at the end of the pier. So he took me up onto the pier, and we walked across the pier to the boat. And he helped me onto the boat and started walking me down through, I guess, to the bottom of the boat. I'm thinking, where are we going? I'm thinking, we're going on a journey. Obviously, we're going across the ocean or somewhere else. And all I could think about was, I can't leave my kids. Not even realizing I'm still laying on my bed looking up at the ceiling, but it's so real. It was real. And he took me down in the boat, and I went into darkness. I went into a dark area, and I could feel the fear and the negativity and the anxiety start to come into me. And I thought, oh, I don't want this darkness to come back to me. I don't want to feel this. I want to feel that glow. I want to feel that love. I want to feel that essence that's around me and surrounding me and has a hold of my hand. That's all I wanted. And he brought me down into the bottom, kind of like where people go, you know, and when they're on a journey, the bottom of the boat. And there was like a place that people would sleep. And he sat me down there, and it was so dark. And I was really, really afraid. I could feel it in my spirit. I could feel it on my body physically. I was afraid. And he started to light up. I could see him in the darkness, and I couldn't see anything else. I didn't want to see anything else. And he looked at me and he said, "You're afraid. Don't be afraid. I'm with you." And he took my hands I reached up with him, and he took my hands as I sat down in front of him. He was standing right there, looking at me, and his gaze never left me. It's like it pierced the very inner part of my being. I'm shaking my head. I can't experience this even more. It's like every time I tell this story, it takes me to that place. And I can't shake it. It's like it's all over my body right now. And he started to speak to me. He prophesied about my life. And he said, in your life, daughter, you are going to go through a lot of darkness. And here I am. I'm very young. I'm a young mom. I was in my early 20s. I started becoming a mom when I was in my teens. And, I thought, how am I going to get through so much darkness? That's what I'm trying to avoid. And he said, you're going to go through a lot of darkness. But he said, don't worry. Don't worry. And that echoes through my mind sometimes. Jesus telling me, don't worry. And he continued and said, because I will be with you always, even unto the end of the age. And at that moment, I'm holding his hands, and he turned into this beautiful ball of light. And that ball of light came down through my hands, into my arms, down into my heart. And it formed this fiery bubble in my heart, and it went through my entire body. And I could literally feel him. And I knew that whatever darkness was going to be happening to me, oh my goodness, I had no idea what I was going to go through. I look back now and I think to myself, how did I get through all of that? Well, I'll tell you how. Because Jesus, the greatest love that ever walked this planet, the one who emulates the God of love, the God of all creation, and calls that God Father in headship, that Jesus, the one who cast out demons, the one who heals people with just one touch, the one who commanded and raised the dead, the one who commanded the oceans and the storms, that Jesus was in me at that very, very moment. Not just my concept of what Jesus is and was, but really Jesus, all of him. And what I can take from that right now, it just kind of comes to me, is that I have all of him. I don't have a piece of him. None have a part of him. He's my friend. He is my guide. He is my North Star. He's my guiding star. And he is my light in the darkness. And if I should wake one day or any day and find myself sitting in darkness, I know that he is the light that will always pull me through. And it doesn't matter whatever else I am into or what I seek, whether it's psychology or whether it's human behavior, whether it's metaphysics, because I have a curious mind. It's the way God made me. Whatever else. Everything else comes down to this very moment of knowing that Jesus is with me always and is my greatest friend and ally. And I woke up the very next morning after. When I came to myself, I could feel him all over me. That beautiful bubble of light touched my body. And it took me days. It was like Moses coming off of the mountain, and he had hair white as snow. It took me days before I could even shake it and function right, because I was stunned. I was changed. I was different. I felt like, wow, was that real? You know, I was torn between the reality of it and thinking I was nuts, one of the two. But if I was nuts, how could I feel the way that I did? And still do to this very day. And I became a visionary at that time. After that, I've always been a visionary. I don't always let it show. I don't always let it out. I don't have a reason to sometimes. But when I do, I have the confidence of knowing that I have the King of Kings inside of me. And there is no doubt about that. Whether I talk about him, whether I don't talk about him, whether I refer to him, whether I don't refer to him, whether I pray and invoke his name, I have him inside of me. And that's good enough. It's good enough for me. And so I found that there was a sale going on in one of the local department stores. And I decided to go shopping and see if I can pick up some things for my kids. And while I was there, I saw a table, and it was full of books. And if you ever want to draw me somewhere, show me the place where there are a lot of books. I'm telling you, I have a house full of books. I will go to any place where I find books and can read and soak in knowledge. That's my thing. I have to know. And I think that's why I have so many certifications and degrees, because I love to soak in knowledge. That's me. That's how God made me. And there they were, just stacks of books. And so I walked over there. How could I not? And there it was, this beautiful blue book wrapped in cellophane, or like a clear wrapping. It wasn't in a box. It wasn't just out there in the open. It was not a hard copy. It's a soft copy. And it was called The Book. And it is the Message version of the Bible. And it had this beautiful book on the outside opened up. This was the picture. And it had light shining down onto the pages. And that struck me right there. I thought, oh my goodness, I need that. I need that light. And it's not that I didn't read the Bible before. It's not that I didn't have other translations before, but there it was, the Message Bible, and light shining down on the words. And it was $5. Can you believe that? It was on sale. And I thought, it's a dream come true. But I got it home. I took off the cellophane. I opened it. And what did I open it to? I just looked down at the page, and it said, Jesus' words, I will be with you always, even unto the end of the age. And I thought, I didn't even know that was scripture when he told me. I was young. I was new at my beliefs, really, even though they began a very long time ago. And there was my confirmation. I had Jesus' spoken words written to me in his love letter inside of the book that I just purchased, with the light shining down on the pages. And from those days on, it was like I was like the Stepford Wives. Remember that old movie, The Stepford Wives? And they just walked around with this kind of a stare. They were like robots. And they just kind of stared out into space as they walked around. That's how I felt. My mind was like, I don't know if I was really thinking. I was functioning, but I was affected. I was different, and I knew it. I was changed. Has my life been perfect? No. Jesus told me there would be darkness, and yeah, there has been darkness. There has been a lot of darkness. And yet, it never ceases to amaze me. Always, someone is sent to me to encourage me, to love me, to hold me in their prayers, in their hearts, to be there for me. There's always an escape from danger. There's always a way out. There's always a place where I'm lifted up eventually after days of darkness or being depressed. There is always a solution to every single problem. It always comes to me. I'm rescued from the storm. And I don't fear leaving this planet, even though sometimes I say I do. But I actually don't. I just don't want to leave those behind me. And that could always be a possibility. But I have a sense that God wants to continue with me. I am like the desert mother, or one of the desert mothers. Back in the first centuries of the church, there were the desert fathers and the desert mothers, and they didn't travel together. They were separate. And they went out into the desert and even into the places in Egypt, of all places, where Moses delivered the Israelites. And after Jesus ascended and the church had already begun, in those first centuries, 1, 2, and 3, the desert mothers would go out into the desert and they would pitch like tents and make residences. And they did it not because they wanted to be alone. They wanted to hear God, aside from what was being preached in what they called the early church. And they received wisdom. That's what they wanted. And they received wisdom in the Spirit, not just reading the Word or reading the pages, but they allowed those pages to be illuminated by the Spirit of God, and they learned from that Spirit. And the church leaders would travel for days to meet with the desert mothers and the desert fathers and receive of their wisdom and the visions that they had, because it was so profound. And they brought it back to the early church. And that was their life. And eventually, the desert fathers kind of morphed into a lot of those men who became monks. And some of the desert mothers kind of morphed into women who eventually became nuns. And it was just kind of the concept. But at the time, they might have lived in communities, but they were very spread out because they didn't want to be affected by anyone else. They wanted to receive of God, And the only time they really went into civilization was when they needed provision. And it's kind of how I am. I kind of recoil when someone says, don't forsake the assembly of the brethren. And although it is scripture, there are those that God pulls apart from other people who gather, because God has a special mandate or a special consecration for those particular people. And I can never figure out why I never fit in those places. They literally repelled me. If they had to be angry with me for no reason, it would happen. They would just look at me and not even really let me assimilate into those places any longer. It's like my time within the fellowship of the church was gone and over with. And please, take this for what it is. Not everyone is the same. Not everyone's the same. Oh, but open your heart and your mind and think about this for a moment. Sometimes God pulls us apart and pulls us to a place of distance because there's something that God wants to do activate into our particular lives. And I receive the most when I am apart from others because I'm not emulating and repeating what they are giving to everyone else. I am receiving from God myself. And I don't feel alone. God always brings people into my life. Whether they're there for a day, whether they're there for 6 months to a year, whether they're there for a month or two, God always brings people into my life eventually. And I can go through what seems like dry spells. And I can go through a lot of darkness and feel very alone, but very supported. There's a difference. We can be by ourselves and be alone and not feel lonely and feel very uplifted and very, very supported. So, I really, really felt like I wanted to give this testimony again. And I really hadn't felt like I wanted to talk about being set apart or pulled apart. But there's a part of me that just really wants to explain that. It's like, do you believe in God? Do you want to go to church? Do you ever want to be in the fellowship? I've been there for years. And it wasn't until I received the blessing of God speaking to me inside that this is okay, that I realized that God had pulled me apart to just belong to God and Jesus and the angels, and to receive messages, whether they are psychology messages, whether they are spiritual, whether they are prayerful and meditative, whatever they happen to be. Where do they come from? Some of it, my studies. Other things, I don't know. I do have a master's degree in theological studies. It's systematic theology. And I went to 3 different theological seminaries, and kind of a little bit off the beaten path, some of them, but I received everything that God wanted me to have. Human behavior, transpersonal psychology. I am ordained, and I've been ordained for over 34 years. But all of that set aside, that was a part of my journey. But the depth of it, the real important stuff that comes out of me comes from the depth of understanding that God gave to me in the wee hours of the night or the morning when I am completely undistracted and alone. Let that sink in. I just want to say, I ask for the Spirit of the living Creator, of the living God, to cover you from your head to your feet and to permeate every cell of your being. Some of you are going through very difficult illnesses. I know many of you are, because you've told me. And I ask for God to shift the wind and for every cell to be healed, for you to touch spiritually the hem of Jesus' garment and to receive every bit of healing you need, and that you would always have the sense of what He said to me when I needed it the most. I will be with you always, even to the end of the age. Period. I hope that you have enjoyed my testimony. It may be a little bit long. I hope it's turned out okay with the sound. I haven't been able to listen to it yet, but I just want to say blessings upon you. Angels be surrounded all the way around you. Receive the healing that God has for you today. And I am so loving you from here. And I'll talk to you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.